Hi, my name is Keisha Brown, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today, answering your question, how to measure social impact. And so I am a nonprofit consultant now. For the last 2 years, I've been a nonprofit consultant. But prior to that, I worked in the nonprofit industry as a director directing various social programs and initiatives ranging from housing, mental health, I did some education, so a lot of different areas. And so I really wanted to come on here and just answer the question of how to measure social impact. And the best way to do that is really know what you're measuring and be sure that what you're measuring is measurable, first of all. And second of all, and most importantly, be sure that what you're measuring is something that really needs to change. Because if you're measuring something that's really kind of nebulous and not clear, and really haven't identified targeted problems or issues in the community to address, then you really don't have anything to measure to know that you have improved anything or that anything has improved in the neighborhood or in the lives of the people that you're serving. And so there is a methodology approach called the progressive outcome scale logic model approach, which focuses on the social determinants of health, those being economic, physical environment, food and nutrition, social context, and healthcare. And so those are a few of the social determinants of health. But for this example, in explaining to you how to measure social impact, I'm going to use economic stability. And let's say we're an organization, XYZ organization. And in order to help the community that we're working in, a marginalized community, to help them develop economic stability, we are going to offer a financial management and literacy class. Now, before you start this financial management and literacy class, before we start this as an organization and start offering it, we need to know what interventions or what specific things should we be sure to include in this program that would best help the people that we're serving. And so a lot of times as educated professionals or seasoned, experienced professionals in our different industries, we feel like we know everything, right? We feel like we know what's best. We have all these different assumptions, but our assumptions aren't always accurate when it comes to what people need to best help them move forward. So it's important to address what are your assumptions? What are the assumptions of not just you, but those working on your team, also those living in the community? What are the assumptions that people have in regards to economic stability and the challenges that are experienced by the targeted population that you are trying to help? So I have a question for you. My question is, what assumptions do you have about the needs of your targeted population? So just think about that for a moment. And I'm going to give you an example of my own. So my assumption would be that many people don't have an active bank account through a traditional FDIC insured bank. Now that's just my assumption, right? But again, it's an assumption. So I need to figure out a way to either prove my assumption true or prove it false and really determine the validity to it. Is it really true? Because I don't want to just create a program based on what I'm assuming people need or what the challenges are. And so I want to start thinking about some valuable information for me to gain before I even go to the community or develop a survey instrument or develop a needs assessment. I want to gather in my own thoughts and in my own mind, what's the valuable information or what's the most valuable information that would be helpful for me to gain in order to provide more insight into the validity of the assumptions that I have. So based on your assumption that you came up with, what would be some valuable information to gain from the targeted community? So recall from my example that the program is financial management literacy course. That's what we're offering. My assumption, recall that, was many people don't have an active bank account through a traditional FDIC insured bank. And then finally, valuable information that I believe would be helpful to know in order to see if that assumption is correct is to find out if individuals actually have an active bank account through an FDIC traditional bank, and if they don't, then why? That would be important for me to know. Now, granted, there are a lot of other different types of information that will be helpful for me to know in order to prove that assumption, but for the sake of time and just using an example, I'm just going to stick with this particular valuable information to gain. Now, another important key as you are developing the identified problems and trying to figure out what to focus on, so you'll have something to measure, is you want to engage the targeted audience. And you want to be sure that what they're sharing with you directly is directly implemented into your programming and into the efforts that you are trying to make to create impact among that population. Now, we're ready to start developing questions that would be asked to the direct population, directly to them. And these questions would be based off of what you have considered to be valuable information to gain. So you already know what valuable information that we want to gain. I gave you that as my example. Now I want to figure out what very specific questions that are intentional questions in order to help me uncover any possible knowledge gaps that may be needed with the target community that I'm serving, or any other types of needed support. I want to be sure that my questions are in very plain language, are very direct, and whenever necessary, that they're open-ended. So it leaves room for individuals to fill in and give me more details as needed, because those closed-ended questions, such as yes or no, does not really give the full context and the why behind the needs. And that's really important to know, especially if you're developing a program. You have to know why things are the way they are so that you can directly address those. And so those should be, that should guide how you develop your questions that you're going to ask to get information from the community. I'm going to give you an example of a question, and this is the actual question that I asked. This was during a focus group or a listening session where I gathered people in the targeted community and just had a conversation with them. I really like those types of ways of gathering information because it allows people to feel free and open, very comfortable when it's more intimate, relaxed type of environment for them to just share. So this is my example question. Remember, we're talking about the category of economic stability. Do you have an active savings account with a traditional bank, such as Citizens, America, etc., where you regularly deposit cash into? As you can see from this data, the majority of individuals did answer no. Now, I have to tell you, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, immediately from all my training, my education, my experience of what I thought the issues were, I said, oh, there must not be any banks, any local banks near them. They must not have access. But as you will see in a moment, that was very far from the truth. In order to really get to the truth, the real issue, the real underlying issue, you have to have that why question answered. And that comes in your qualitative data. A lot of organizations will kind of push that qualitative data over to the side and kind of really focus and hone in on this quantitative, how many type of data. But really, that's what's not been getting us very far, up until now. It's time that we start looking at that qualitative data, because that is going to be what helps us to be able to have better measurement of our impact and of our effort. And so that why is so very important. I cannot stress that enough. So I did follow up with a question to that. And that question was very simple, very plain, direct. If you answered no, please share why. Now, when you have that qualitative data, you've got a lot of information, right? But it's good especially like when you're doing a focus group or type of in-person session where people are sharing, you can really kind of hone in on what people are mentioning a lot and what they're agreeing on and what everybody in the room is saying, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's why. That's the reason. Yes. That helps to put together those emerging themes of what people are sharing and what a lot of people have in common that you're trying to help. And so these were the actual responses. And I was amazed that no one shared that the reason they didn't have a bank account was because they didn't have access or didn't know where the banks were. But I did ask that question still because I was wondering, nobody said this at all. Well, is there do you have access? Do you know where the banks are? And everyone agreed, like in unison, yes, they know where the banks are. They have access. There's one right at the corner, it's down the street. We can go. They knew that that was not the issue. The issue was that, hey, Cash App is just as easy to use and there's no need for banks. The next one was, I don't have enough money to save when I'm done paying bills and other stuff. I owe too many companies and I'm afraid that my money will be taken by the banks or the companies will take my money. And then finally, the most common response was the banks give such a little tiny interest rate. It just doesn't seem worth it to me. So these were some really eye-popping ahas, like, okay, this is where we really need to focus our intervention. This is where we really need to pay attention and hone in and help people. And so this is what is used in the progressive outcome scale logic model. This information helps to build the indicators, the key performance indicators that are in the progressive outcome scale logic model and are tracked using a stage level of measurement. If you want to find out more about that, please subscribe and you can learn more about that through the other videos that I have in my channel. But I want to kind of go over this because this is your measurement. This is how you measure social impact. Based on that information that was shared during the last slide that I just covered, I set objectives based on what was shared. So the first objective for me or for us as an organization, as XYZ organization, is to, first of all, be sure that people understand the wealth generating benefits of traditional banks and mobile banking apps. Secondly, be sure that people understand how to budget their money better by omitting unnecessary expenses. 3, develop strategies to pay off creditors, such as making arrangements. Make sure people understand that and help teach those types of concepts in our program. And then finally, gain the ability to identify savings options which yield a higher interest rate. And just be sure people are aware of that because there are other things and other methods out there. There's CDs, there's stocks, there's mutual funds, there's a lot, but maybe they just don't know or have that information. And so now there may be several other, indicators, I'm sure, for this particular area and that we can use in our financial management and literacy class, but these are just some ideas and some various indicators that might be used. So I hope that this was helpful to you. And again, if you want much more, feel free to subscribe to my channel. My name is Keisha Brown, author of Racial Equity Lens Logic Model and Theory of Change. And thank you for watching.